The Earth's average temperature has risen by about 1 degree Celsius since the late 19th century. This warming trend, primarily driven by human activities, has profound implications for our planet. Yet, despite the overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change, it remains a deeply polarizing issue, entangled in the complex web of political ideology. This essay will delve into how political beliefs influence the acceptance of climate science, exploring the historical context, tactics used to spread misinformation, and the economic arguments often employed to resist climate action. The politicization of climate change is a relatively recent phenomenon. For decades, environmental issues enjoyed bipartisan support in many countries. However, starting in the 1980s, a stark divide emerged, largely driven by differing views on the role of government regulation and the perceived economic costs of addressing climate change. Understanding this historical context is crucial to grasping the current state of the climate debate. The 1980s marked a turning point in the climate change discourse. Conservative think tanks, often funded by fossil fuel interests, began to actively challenge the scientific consensus on climate change. They framed environmental regulations as government overreach, hindering economic growth and individual liberties. This narrative resonated with conservative ideology, leading to a growing skepticism towards climate science within those circles. Conversely, the Democratic Party increasingly embraced environmental protection as a core platform. They viewed climate change as a threat to public health, social justice, and economic stability, necessitating government intervention to mitigate its impacts. This partisan divide deepened over time, fueled by political rhetoric, media coverage, and lobbying efforts from various interest groups. The result is a highly polarized landscape where climate change is often viewed through the lens of political affiliation rather than scientific evidence. One of the most effective tactics employed to undermine climate action has been the deliberate manufacturing of doubt and confusion about the science itself. Conservative media outlets, think tanks, and politicians have often presented climate change as a matter of scientific debate, amplifying dissenting voices and downplaying the overwhelming consensus among climate scientists. This strategy, reminiscent of the tobacco industry's efforts to discredit the link between smoking and cancer, has been remarkably successful in shaping public perception. Another tactic involves cherry-picking data, highlighting periods of cooling or natural climate variability to argue that human-caused warming is not significant. This often involves misrepresenting scientific studies or presenting complex data in misleading ways. The goal is not to engage in good faith scientific debate, but to sow doubt and create an illusion of controversy where there is none. This misinformation campaign has had a profound impact, delaying action and hindering efforts to address the climate crisis effectively. Section 4. The economics of denial, profit over planet. Economic arguments play a central role in the resistance to climate action. Opponents often frame climate policies as job killers, arguing that transitioning away from fossil fuels will cripple economies and harm businesses. They emphasize the short-term costs of climate action while downplaying the long-term economic risks of inaction, such as increased damage from extreme weather events, sea level rise, and agricultural disruptions. A prime example of this approach was the Trump administration's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, a landmark international accord aimed at curbing global warming. Trump argued that the agreement was detrimental to American economic interests, prioritizing short-term gains for the fossil fuel industry over the long-term well-being of the planet and future generations. This decision highlighted the powerful influence of economic arguments in shaping climate policy, often overshadowing scientific evidence and long-term considerations. Section 5. Blurred lines, when facts become opinions. In the current political climate, facts and opinions are often blurred, particularly when it comes to complex issues like climate change. Scientific findings based on rigorous research and peer-reviewed evidence are often presented as mere opinions, open to debate and subject to personal interpretation. This erosion of trust in scientific expertise has serious implications for our ability to address critical challenges facing society. Politicians and media personalities often exploit this blurring of lines, cherry-picking information that supports their pre-existing views while dismissing evidence that contradicts their narratives. This selective use of information contributes to the polarization of public opinion and makes it challenging to have nuanced, evidence-based discussions about climate change. The result is a society increasingly ill-equipped to grapple with the complexities of this global challenge. Section 6. Bridging the gap towards a future of informed action. Addressing the climate crisis requires bridging the partisan divide and fostering a more informed and nuanced public discourse. This involves promoting media literacy, encouraging critical thinking, and supporting evidence-based decision-making. It also requires holding politicians and media outlets accountable for spreading misinformation and distorting scientific findings. Scientists have a crucial role to play in this process. By communicating their findings clearly and engaging with the public directly, they can help to demystify climate science and counter misinformation. It is also essential to highlight the ethical dimensions of climate change, emphasizing its disproportionate impact on vulnerable communities and future generations. Ultimately, addressing this global challenge requires a collective effort, transcending political divides and prioritizing the well-being of our planet and its inhabitants. The time for action is now.